What's going on? Welcome back to another episode of Dugout Talk. We got some special in store for you guys today, but first, as always, it's your boys Cameron and
Steven.
yes, sir. So today, for you guys, we got something special. As you can see here, we've got PowerPoint now.
Yes, we
Um,
do.
all things work. We've had a few technical difficulties this morning, but if all things go ahead and start smoothing out here, we should have some special stuff in store for you guys moving forward. So today we've got a new division to talk about. We've got a new team to talk about. A whole week of goodies in store for you guys. But we'll jump into some Dave history stuff here real quick. So in 1946, this will be 75 years ago, the Philadelphia Phillies hired the very first female scout in MLB history. Her name was Edith, I believe it's Houghton or Houghton.
I think it's
Houghton.
Houghton.
Houghton. Um, Houghton signed 15 players, mostly just Philadelphia high school athletes, but still very important. She served as a Philly scout until 1952, so she served for about 7 years as a scout. Um, After which she joined the Navy. She went to war. She went to serve in the Navy in Korea and Vietnam. I did not check to see how she served or what she did specifically, but as far as her baseball repertoire goes, very important moment in history for major leagues. A very first female scout. She signed some players to some contracts. Like there was a At the time, it was a very white male driven league. Players of color and especially females had a very hard time landing their feet in the league. So for a female to become a scout and sign some players to some contracts, it was very, very important moment in history.
Absolutely. Edith Hutton really paved the way for women in sports, and we talked about that not too long ago with seeing women on coaching staffs now. The Brewers recently promoting that young woman to hitting coordinator for minor leagues. We even saw the Marlins hire Kim Mung as the new GM. I mean,
Yeah.
she really paved the way for this. Before that, it was really just ownership. That was
Mm-hmm.
really the only way women were involved, and they weren't even that involved
Yeah.
until Marge Scott. So,
Yes.
yeah, very nice, very cool day in history. My day in history happened 31 years ago today in 1990. Now, we've talked about this too, where players and owners, there's just a rift. They either not in cahoots with each other relationally. And if you thought that was bad now, it was much worse back in the 80s and 90s. So today in 1990, a salary cap issue forced owners to shut down operations for a seventh time in as many seasons. The lockout delayed the season by 1 week and extended the season an extra 3 days to make up for lost time so they can make up for the whole 162 games. Owners initially refused to open spring training camp because there hadn't been a basic agreement on salary reached with players. So because of this, spring training didn't start until a week after it was supposed to, and as a result, everything just got pushed back. But this is one of those things that looking at what it's like today and looking at what it's like back then, we are very thankful to not have as many lockouts. We actually haven't had any lockouts happen since
Mm-hmm.
this whole rift started, but to have 7 lockouts in a span of 10
Yeah.
years is quite ugly impressive. But I just thought this was cool, just kind of considering how things are going right now and how it seems like there probably will be a lockout in the coming years. As much as we hate to say it, it's just it feels inevitable at this point. But hopefully, history does not repeat itself, and the owners and players can come together and actually get something figured out.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, it'll be crazy. Um, the 1994 Expos kind of got gypped out of potential World Series appearance. I know anything can happen in a full season, but the lockout kind of messed them over.
Yeah, that was the best team they had in franchise history before then.
Yep. All right. So today we're talking about the Pittsburgh Pirates. They were the bottom feeders in the NL Central last season. Finished with a 19-41 record. Really just unfortunately, because of how close I live to them, I'm only about 3.5 hours away. They're the closest team to me. Really unfortunate that they kind of were essentially the worst team in baseball last season. You take a look at some of their additions. They made a lot of small-time ads. Tony Walters, Brian Goodwin on a non-roster invite, Michael Perez, Will Crow, starting pitcher, Chasen Shreve, a relief pitcher they brought on a non-roster invite, David Bedner, who they got in the Joe Musgrove trade, and Luis Oviedo. But you look at some of their losses were some of their key players, guys like their first baseman, Josh Bell, the starting pitchers, Trevor Williams, Joe Musgrove, Chris Archer, Jamison Tyan. They all left. Williams and Archer via free agency, and Musgrove and Tyan via trade. They also lost their backup catcher, Luke Maley, and a relief pitcher, one of their better relief pitchers, Keone Kela, who actually just this morning signed a free agent contract with the San Diego Padres. So you look at some of their losses, as I mentioned, a lot of key players for them.
Yeah, they brought in, so they basically ended in the Clint Hurdle era last year.
Mm-hmm.
He was their skipper for 10 years, got fired after the 2019 season. They brought in a new guy named Derek Shelton, who has been highly coveted as a managerial candidate over the years. So it's hard to say. I mean, you could probably argue having new management, you can't expect things to go well on the first go around, but I think in a full season, it's going to be interesting to see how Shelton does, especially with what they have now, because this team has considerably downgraded.
Mm-hmm.
They have lost very high ceiling players in the likes of Bell, Williams, Musgrove, Tyone. It's going to be a rather tough year, I think, for Pirates fans. It's really unfortunate because they had those 3 years where they were really successful. And even though they ran into the likes of the Cardinals and the Cubs in the division,
Mm-hmm.
they still managed to secure that top wild card spot. But only once they were able to make something come of it. Kind of looking at what they've done this offseason, most of what they've been doing is just adding insurance to their youngsters. This is kind of more so. Some of these moves are to either give guys more time to develop or insurance in the event these guys get injured in spring training and maybe even earlier or later in the year if it happens.
Mm-hmm.
Tony Walters is a good backup catcher. I think he'll be a good supporter to Jacob Stallings back there. Chasen Shreve, I think he'd be a good bullpen addition. He actually did pretty well with the Mets last year, 3.96 ERA across like 18 games, I think. Brian Goodwin's developed a good resume. I think he should easily make the team going into opening
Mm-hmm.
day, maybe even be used as trade bait later on in the year. David Bedner, he's had some short sample stints with the Padres, not the most clean samples, but I think going to Pittsburgh, having a little change of scenery, having a chance to actually be an everyday contributor to the team will help him out. And then Michael Perez, he's just another good bench piece to have for
Mm-hmm.
them. I believe they got him from the Rays, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so, yeah.
I think kind of looking at the losses they have, the thing that came to my mind was this group of guys, the majority of these guys at least, were supposed to be guys to keep the team competitive after 2015. Josh Bell, he was their star first baseman. He had a breakout year in 2019. He was in MVP talks, if I'm not mistaken, that year. He had a killer year. Trevor Williams, he's been pretty consistent. I know he's had some injuries. Same with Jamison Tyan, but they were both rather consistent. Joe Musgrove, he was a good back end rotation guy to have. Even Keone Kela, he was a really good bullpen piece to have for them, a consistent presence there. I believe he was an all-star for them one year. Chris Archer was really the only guy that didn't work out for them, and Archer was injured all of last season. He's back in familiar territory now with the Rays. This team definitely is not going to compete, or they're not expecting to compete, I should say. Like you said, they were the bottom feeders last year. They had the worst record in baseball, so they'll get the number 1 overall pick. And I know they should easily win more than 19 games this year. They should, considering it's a full season. But other than that, I don't expect a lot, just considering what they've got. And it is going to be a tough year to be a Pirates fan. But the trades they've been making at least show they are looking further ahead into the future. And I think you just got to consider who all is in that division right now and who all is trying to be competitive. It's just their window closed, and they see the window closed, and they need to get that window open again for the long term, because the Cardinals, the Brewers, even the Reds, you figure, are going to be pretty decent the next few seasons.
Yep.
So Pittsburgh's trying to build for at least like 2024, 2025, when maybe some of those windows are starting to close and they can sneak in. So it's going to be interesting to see how things work out. They have acquired a lot of really young talent, a lot of guys that are in rookie level, single A ball, some guys who've made the triple A. But for the most part, they're kind of riding out the storm and seeing what they've got in some of these guys. And they do have some youngsters that are starting to make their way up on the team. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with this group of players.
Yeah, I think a lot of where they're at right now can probably be attributed to that Chris Archer trade. They put a lot of eggs in that basket, giving like I thought it was I understand having given away the starting pitcher Glass now. Yeah, I understand that he had a lot of struggles, but like Austin Meadows was a stud.
He was.
Like, even in his very, very short stint with the Pirates, like he was already showing signs of being like a 30-20 type of guy, 300 average or higher. Like he was already showing signs. He had dominated the minor leagues. He was their guy. And to think that they gave up him plus other guys in exchange for what, a year and a half of 2.5 years of Archer. I think if Chris Archer would have been the guy that if he would have amounted to the value they gave up for him, they would be in a very different situation right now. I believe they'd be contenders in the NL Central. Looking back, I just think that Archer trade played a big role in their downfall.
That was literally a move of they felt like they had an opportunity sitting in front of them, and they tried to jump on it, and it completely backfired in their face.
Yeah, they were in the hunt.
They were
not just for the NL wild card, but they were in the hunt for the NL Central.
Yeah.
There in 2018, they had a real shot to do it, and unfortunately, the Chris Archer trade kind of fell through.
Yeah, that was that probably goes down as one of the worst trades to happen in baseball history.
Yeah.
At least in the 2010s, that was one of the worst.
Yeah, and it's a shame because I don't know if they could have fixed the issues that Tyler Glasnow had. They really wanted him to kind of be a different pitcher than what the Rays decided to turn him into. I think that played a big role, and even played a big role in them losing Garrett Cole to a larger degree. You know, he was a totally different pitcher. The Astros wanted to be much more free throwing, kind of like what happened with Sonny Gray and the Yankees. The Yankees wanted him to throw a slider a lot. They were kind of moving him away from his fastball. He goes to the Reds. They're like, just throw whatever you want, and then he turns into a stud. So, enough ranting about Chris Archer here. We will jump into their projected lineups. This figures to be a relatively quiet lineup. Not too many big bats that you're going to have to worry about. Most decent starting pitchers should have a pretty easy time kind of carving through these guys. Not to say that they're pushovers, but they're definitely neck deep in their rebuild. With that said, I do have Adam Frazier leading off, playing second base. He figures I've always liked Adam Frazier as a nice complementary piece. He can hit 280, 290, 10, 15 home runs, drive in a few runs. He's a decent leadoff hitter. Kevin Newman, their shortstop, I like him hitting second, playing shortstop. He figures to get some more time moving forward. Brian Hayes, their third baseman, I like him being the third hitter. He was a big time player for them last season. I believe he hit 376 with 5 home runs and 11 RBIs in his limited time, I believe 24 games. So he figures to be a big important player for them. The first baseman Colin Moran cleaning up. Brian Reynolds, the left fielder, hitting 5th. Gregory Polanco, the right fielder, hitting 6th. I have Anthony Alford patrolling center, hitting 7th. I have Jacob Stallings hitting 8th, and then the pitcher rounding it out.
Yeah, we have the same guys in our lineup, just kind of different positions.
Mm-hmm.
I do like Anthony Alford in center field. I know he was with the Blue Jays. He split time between the Blue Jays and Pirates last year. I think giving him a shot to be an everyday player will probably help him. He's a good defender. He hasn't really come around to the bat just yet, but I think getting some of that consistent playing time will help him with the bat. So I've got him leading off. Adam Frazier, as of right now, I have him hitting second, but there have been some trade rumors that he might be the next guy the Pirates try to move. And there are teams looking for a second baseman. So I think this might be one that happens this could happen before opening day. I wouldn't be surprised. And considering the luck we've had after covering teams, I wouldn't even be surprised if it happened today, but we'll see. So I've got Frazier hitting second. I got Colin Moran hitting third. I think he's going to be kind of like the face of the offense for this year. I've got him as the number 3 hitter. Gregory Polanco, I've got him hitting cleanup. He only hit a $153 last year, but he did produce 7 homers, so the power is definitely there. I think he's a good kind of clean up middle of the order guy to have in that lineup that can produce some power. Key Brian Hayes, I've got him hitting 5th behind Polanco. That could be a really good 4-5 punch power wise right there.
Yeah.
I do expect Hayes probably moves up in the lineup a little earlier in the year, but for right now, I think 5 is a good spot to put him. Brian Reynolds, I've got him hitting 6th, and I am really high on Reynolds. I love this guy. He has a very smooth swing. He can make good contact. I know he only hit 189 last season, but his rookie year, he hit 314. And he can provide a little pop there, but he's more of a contact hitter. I think in a full season, we'll see a lot more production from him. I've got him in the 6th spot. Kevin Newman playing shortstop. I've got him hitting 7th. Jacob Stallings, the catcher, I've got him hitting 8th, and Stallings actually has a pretty decent bat on him as well. He might even move up. He might even move up a little bit in the lineup later on, but I like Stallings as number 8 right now, and then whoever the pitcher is, I've got him hitting 9th.
Yeah, it's a balanced lineup. They're not too heavily right-handed, too heavily left-handed. You know, they don't have a bunch of guys who are going to hit home runs and strike out, but at the same time, they don't have just, contact hitters. It's a nice mix of lineup. Just lacking really the talent that they expect to see in the coming years.
If they can get some of that talent from Gregory Polanco, like they've been, I think they could at least make the offense one to make pitching staff struggle with.
Yep.
Man, Polanco, God, I watched him play a couple years ago when the Pirates were in town, and this man has the capability of being a star, but it just hasn't worked out, whether it's been because of injuries or whatever it might be. So this is the guy I'm rooting for. I hope he can have a good year, because I feel like this is he's really the last guy that was part of the Pirates' success runs before they started doing this little rebuild retool. So it'll be interesting to see if the team even thinks he'll be part of that future, or if they see him as part of the future when some of these youngsters start coming up.
Yeah, I don't know how well you'll be able to see it, but I actually have a card here. A couple years ago, it's a dueling die cuts.
Okay.
Gregory Polanco and the late Oscar Taveras.
Oh wow!
I thought those two were going to be the face of baseball back in 2014. Like they were both they were literally like two of the best prospects in baseball. I was a huge Oscar Taveras fan, and boy, did it break my heart to see him pass away in that car accident in the Dominican.
That was a rough day.
Yeah, I actually my second time going to PNC Park, I actually purchased. My uncle bought me a Gregory Polanco jersey, so I was ready. I'm not even a Pirates fan, and I was ready for Polanco to be like the face of baseball.
Yeah,
didn't really work out. Who knows? Maybe he just needs a change of scenery. We'll look at their rotations. Why don't you go ahead and let us know how your rotation figures to set up this season?
Yeah, so Stephen Brawl, I want to make a quick note on him. He's a Regis University product. Regis University resides in Denver.
Okay.
So he is quote unquote local. I didn't
Yeah.
check to see if he was born here. I think maybe he was born in Colorado, but I'm not entirely confident on that. But Brawl had a good short season last year, 3.38 ERA. I think he's going to be the opening day guy for them. Rooting for him too, and also he has a little bit of a bat. Just a little bit. He hit a bomb at Coors Field a couple years ago. Went into the upper deck, and for a pitcher, that's unheard of. You don't see that very often. Mitch Keller, the youngster, I've got him as the number 2. There's a lot of people projecting that this is going to be a breakout year for him. And honestly, I could see it. He had a 2.91 ERA in a short sample size of games last year. So I could easily see this being kind of a big year for him. Chad Kuhl, we got him as the number 3. I'm excited to see him back on the mound. He dealt with injuries the last couple of years, finally got to pitch a little bit last year. So we'll see how the full season works for him. JT Brubaker, I've got him as the number 4. And then their prospect, Will Crow, I've got him as the number 5 right now. And I believe Crow's the number 21 prospect in the system. He appears to be a guy that will be on the team come opening day, unless the spring training is just atrocious for him. But I expect to see him in the number 5 spot.
Yeah, my rotation figures to be almost exactly identical. The only difference, as you can see now, is I had Mitch Keller 1 and Stephen Brault 2. Stephen Brault, yeah, I'm excited for him. You know, he's going to be the lefty in their rotation moving forward. I think they could have a really quietly good 1-2 punch with Keller and Brault, assuming that they both, continue their development. The rotation's young. It's got plenty of potential. There's plenty of innings to be eaten up there. I think they can definitely rely on it. Now, something that I just kind of was looking over last season. I know it's with a lot of the pitchers that they lost, but last season their pitching wasn't terrible. Last season they had 8 different pitchers make starts for them last year, and of those 8, 6 of them had sub 5 ERAs. So 6 of their 8 starting pitchers last season were at least average to above average. The only 2 pitchers who had ERAs above 5 were Trevor Williams and Derek Holland, who are now both gone. 13 of their 19 relief pitchers had sub 5 ERAs, so their bullpen was decent as well. They had a lot of pitchers, like as I mentioned, that was 27 different pitchers that they had appear in a game for them. Although what really stood out to me is they finished 5th in the NL in hits allowed, and they finished 5th in the NL in strikeouts. So quietly a really decent pitching staff for them last season. As I mentioned, some of the guys they had are now gone. And we'll look at their bullpen here in a second, but I thought it was really interesting. And I wanted to see if those were good numbers. And I took a look at the Cubs, who won the division. They had 9 different players make a start for them, and only 4 of the Cubs' 9 starting pitchers had sub 5 ERAs. Now, take it with a grain of salt, but I mean, at least decent. It's definitely looking bright. There's a good future for the Pirates moving forward.
Yeah, it seems like a good rotation to kind of stick with for 2021, especially if Keller and Brault break out like people think they're going to. That could be a quietly good 1-2 punch, like you said.
Yeah, and I'll take a look at the bullpen. Looking at it, I couldn't tell you who's going to be the closer. I think they like Richard Rodriguez to kind of go in there, at least into spring training, as their closer. I feel like closer by committee is going to play a big role for the Pirates this year. So as I mentioned, Richard Rodriguez, this guy. Chris Stratton figures to get some innings. Michael Feliz and Kyle Crick, who both spent a few years here now, they both figured to be middle to late innings guys. I think those 2 might be the biggest competitors for the closer. Chase and Shreve figures to get some good some good specialist time, lefty on lefty. If a lineup matches where you can get 3 lefties or 2 lefties and a righty, I think that's going to be his biggest strength. I know that was always kind of his big strength with the Yankees. He was always a lefty specialist. So I think that the Pirates are going to kind of look at him the same way. I don't think they're going to be scared to throw him out there against righties. He doesn't have crazy bad numbers versus righties, but I think he definitely has a good chance of making the roster as a non-roster invitee. David Bedner, who, as I mentioned, they acquired in the Joe Musgrove trade. He figures to get some solid time. They're going to find out what they have with him. Carson Fulmer, who was formerly of the, he was the Oriole, right? Or was he the White Sox?
White Sox.
So Carson Fulmer, kind of a failed prospect. I won't say a bust. He didn't have huge expectations, but I think they're going to see if they can revive something out of him in the bullpen. And then obviously Luis Oviedo, the young pitcher, they figured to get some innings for him as well.
Yeah, I think the Pirates are going to kind of be throwing guys in and out of the bullpen throughout the year. I was kind of curious to see what they might do as far as closing goes too. And I agree with you. I think it will be closer by committee, but as of right now, I've got Richard Rodriguez as their closer. But again, I could easily see that changing over time unless if Rodriguez just kills it on the back end of that bullpen. Chris Stratton, now there wasn't too long ago, Stratton was a starter.
Yeah.
It didn't quite work out, but it wasn't terrible. It could have been a lot worse. But there is a part of me that feels like maybe the Pirates could use him as like an opener. If they want to go that route, maybe give him a few innings just to, if they want to do like a bullpen day, let Stratton go out there and pitch a few innings. I imagine he's going to be their long relief guy. Michael Feliz and Kyle Kranick think will be in the back end of that bullpen too with Rodriguez. I could easily see one of those guys taking the closer's role too. Chase and Shreve, I don't know if I said this at the beginning of the show, but he had a 3.96 ERA with the Mets last year. I didn't realize he was on a big league team last year.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's respectable for, I think it was 17 or 18 games that he appeared in. So Shreve is kind of trying to build his value back up, and I think being on the Pirates is going to help him. And if he puts up a good enough start, he could also be trade bait later on in the year. David Bedner, I think he'll be on the opening day roster for sure. One guy I was looking at on Fangraphs, and he projects to maybe be in the rotation at some point, Cody Poncey. I think that's how you pronounce it, Poncey or Ponce. They think, Fangraphs thinks he'll be in the rotation at some point in the year, but he actually had a pretty decent short stint last year with the club. He had a 3.18 ERA across 5 starts, or 5 games, 3 of those were starts. He figures to be a part of that bullpen, at least maybe on the opening day roster. He might even play a part in the rotation, depending on what they like out of him. And then Sam Howard, for right now, I have him as their lefty specialist. The Pirates got him from the Rockies. I think being being away from Coors Field will kind of deflate his early numbers. He was not all that impressive with Colorado, but again, I think going somewhere new and being in a little more pitcher-friendly environment, I think will help him. I've got him getting an opening day bullpen spot right now, but I could easily see Luis Oviedo being in that mix as well at some point in the year, just not sure when.
Yeah, Sam Howard, he started a few games in his minor league career, hasn't he?
I can't recall off the top of my head. He may have, but I think he's seen more.
I feel like I've okay. Yeah, he should be a decent. He's a guy that not many people talk about.
No,
I've kind of looked at him from afar, and he's never. I think that the Coors Field kind of situation has definitely played a bigger role than some people may realize.
Yeah, I think so too, to some degree. But I mean, some pitchers, some of the guys that the Rockies have right now have found some success, some limited success.
Oh yeah,
out there. But yeah, I think Howard just didn't really find that. I think he'll be better off at PNC. Maybe even be a future part of their bullpen. He's still really young, so we'll see how that goes.
Yep. Moving on, Some prospects to keep your eyes on. I'll go ahead and start us off. I really like Travis Swaggerty. Is one of their top prospects, top outfield prospects. A nice center fielder. He's got good speed. He's got a good bat. He figures to probably see some more minor league time moving forward. It'll be interesting to see how he handles Double A and Triple A. He hasn't seen any Double A or Triple A time. The highest that he's seen is High A. But he's played fairly well. He has a good batting average, some home runs, some raw power is what has been described. So it'll be interesting to see if he can develop that. I actually got to see him in person in 2018. He was playing for the West Virginia Black Bears, and they were visiting the State College Spikes, who are kind of my local team. So I got to see him play in person, and he looked pretty good. The next guy I want to cover is the main prospect that they got in return for the Joe Musgrove trade, Hudson Head. He's a center fielder. He's got plenty of speed. Power is not quite. It's definitely raw. I'll say that for him as well. He's viewed as kind of a potential 5-tool guy for the Pirates moving forward in their future. It'll be interesting to see kind of how he continues to develop. He's only played a few games in the Arizona League, so he hasn't really seen any professional action. So he's still more than a few years off. It'll be interesting to see what they do with him. And then Roansy Contreras, one of the prospects that they got in return for Jamison Tyan from the Yankees. I've watched him for a couple of years now in the minor leagues. 21 years old. He figures to. I doubt he sees major league time this year. I think it's much more likely that he sees his debut next season or 2023. He's actually had a really good minor league career to this point. A low 3 ERA. A winning. I know record doesn't really matter in the minor leagues, but he does have a winning record. Ks per 9 was relatively low. I believe it's somewhere in the 7s in terms of Ks per 9. His WHIP is right around 1.1. But he, like I said, has got a good ERA. He gets guys out, a low hits per 9. So it'll be interesting to see kind of where his development takes him this season.
Yeah, I was looking at their prospects too, and I'm really glad we didn't have the same ones. But some of the guys that I wanted to take a look at, they're guys that actually could make the major league roster a lot sooner than later. The first guy I wanted to take a look at was Jared Oliva. And Oliva had a very brief stint with the team last year. I'm going to pull my notes up right here real quick. He only hit 188 on the team last year. I think he only played in like 5 games, so it wasn't a huge sample size. But in the minors, he does have a career 274 batting average. He's an outfielder, by the way, 25 years old, so he's a little older on the prospect side. But according to Fangraphs, I even feel like he's probably done with minor league time. I think he's going to see a lot more time on the big league club this year. He doesn't have a lot of power with the bat, but he does consistently get on base. He does drive in runs. He's got 287 games on his belt in the minors, only 15 homers. But he's driven in 106 runs, so he can get guys home, or he can drive guys home. I think it'll be interesting to see what the Pirates see in him, maybe as a leadoff guy, maybe as a bottom of the order. I'm not sure what it's going to look like as far as that goes, but Oliva, I feel like, could be on the opening day roster if he has a good enough spring training, especially since he did get a little time last year. I've got my order mixed up here. And it was just because I completely skipped over this guy. But I'm going to talk about Cody Bolton first. By the way, Oliva's the number 12 prospect. Cody Bolton's right behind him at number 13. He's a right-handed pitcher, 22 years old. He's with the Altoona Curve right now, their Double-A club. But he has been a rising star for them since he got drafted. He has a 3.36 ERA in the minor leagues. He is a starting pitcher, 39 starts in his career. He's 11-11. And I know record doesn't matter, but looking at the ERA and the games he started, probably figure maybe run support is a big thing that has probably lacked him wins. But this is a guy who averages about 1 strikeout per inning. 169 strikeouts in his minor league career in 171.2 innings pitched. He has a 1.09 whip, and get this, in his 171 and 2/3 innings, he's only given up 14 homers. So this is a guy,
Wow.
this is a guy who can keep the ball in the park. He's not a fly ball pitcher, which I think pitching in an environment like PNC will be very useful for him. Granted, PNC is not. PNC is a neutral ballpark. I'll say it can play to hitters. It also plays to pitchers. But seeing those numbers, 14 homers across the 171 and 2/3 innings in his career, that's impressive. That is not something to shy away from. I expect Bolton to get at least a spring training invite this year. Maybe I would like to see him get some time against some big league pitching, and then see how far he can go in the minors. But I think this is a guy that Pirates fans should keep an eye on. I think he's going to be on the team a lot sooner than what might be projected for him. And I haven't seen a projection list as far as like when these guys are going to come up, but there is a chance he could make the team this year. And then there's another pitcher, Max Kranick. He's their number 29 prospect. He's 23 years old. He's also a right-handed pitcher. He has a 3.34 ERA in his minor league career across 245 innings pitched. So he's a little more seasoned than Bolton is. He's made 47 starts in 51 games, a 12-14 record. He has 194 strikeouts in his career, 1.16 whip. He's given up 20 homers in 245 innings pitched. So he's actually he's actually kind of on the same
technically better.
Yeah, he and Bolton are kind of like right there with each other. They both have similar numbers. It's just Bolton has like one less year of experience than Kranick does. And Kranick is on the 40-man roster. I did look at that. He is on the 40-man roster right now. So this guy could be an opening day or he could be on the opening day roster as well if he puts up a good spring. But these are two kind of low grade guys I was looking at and was like, wow, these guys are pretty decent. This could be something that the Pirates have to look forward to, especially if they both make the team at some point this year. I'm actually kind of excited for these two guys. I'm excited about Oliva too, but Bolton and Kranick are two guys I really think could make an immediate impact on the club, maybe even speed up the build up or the rebuild process that they've been doing. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how that goes for them. But those are my three prospects that I wanted to look at going into opening day, going into spring training.
Yeah, definitely a lot to look forward to for the Buccos.
Yeah, exactly. Try to get out of here.
All right. So, kind of looking at how we project the Pirates to finish up this season, what's your floor and what's your ceiling for them?
I don't think it's going to be a great year for them.
No.
I don't like to project teams getting 100 losses. I think as far as their floor goes, though, they're probably the team most likely to have that happen. I could see. I'm going to probably throw 105 in there as their floor. I think they could win as many as 67 games. So I'll say the floor is 57 wins, ceiling 67 wins. And it's just because they got a lot of prospects that are coming up. It's going to be it's going to just be one of those years for them. I imagine they'll probably get the number 1 overall pick again for the second year in a row. I hope that they are better, though. I want to see how Derek Shelton actually does in a full season. And by no means is this Shelton's fault. He just doesn't have a lot to work with. But I think to see what he's capable of as a manager will show how this year goes, if they can do better than what projections may put them at right now.
Yeah, I want to assume that they're definitely going to look at, being that they kept Clint Hurdle as long as they did. I hope they give Derek Shelton the opportunity to not, unless he proves to be, inept at managing. I hope they give him the opportunity to at least see out the process of the rebuild that they're going through, and maybe even give an opportunity to kind of manage their rise back to competition. So my projections are a little harsher. I think that they have a floor of potentially 45 wins. I think they could get as high as 60. I think they're definitely a 100-loss team. You hate to say it, but they're definitely not the players are going to go out there and they're going to give their 100% effort every day. But as we mentioned, the Pirates are definitely rebuilding right now. They're definitely they've hit the bottom and now they're starting to come back up. So I don't think that they're going to be kind of riddled in mediocrity for much longer. But this year definitely figures to be another year of that. Um, a lot of people are saying they could lose like 120 games. I doubt that they're going to lose that many, but I could definitely see a floor of like 40 and 112, as high as 60 and 102. So I definitely see them somewhere in that area.
Yeah, it is. Well, I think the Detroit Tigers have the worst record in the modern era, 43 and 119 one year.
Yeah, I believe
Yeah,
so.
I don't think the Pirates are that. I don't think they're that bad.
No, no. Even having lost all the guys they did, they're not that bad.
Yeah, I think that. I mean, yeah, this isn't going to be the most fun, but one thing to look forward to, I think, with some of these teams that are in like rebuild and retool, seeing these young guys in big league action and then kind of watching them as their careers progress, it's something really exciting. I think that's like the only thing I kind of look forward to whenever something like that happens is, well, we get a chance to see these young guys and what they're capable of, and then seeing them rise to stardom a few years down the line. Then it's like, that's really cool. That's always kind of a cool moment. I know that it's not always the most fun going through that. As a fan, it's really frustrating, but when the success finally comes into play, it's like, yeah, that was really cool. I do hope that the Pirates are a good team again sooner rather than later. It was really fun to see them from 2013 to 2015.
It was.
And even, they sprinkled in a couple good years before and a little bit after. But hopefully sooner rather than later, this team is back to kind of competition again. And hopefully the NL Central's cooled down a little bit by the time these guys are coming up through the system and making their debuts. Because I think that was the problem they ran into from 2013 to 2015. Yeah, they were wild card teams, but and they would have, and even if they didn't add the extra wild card team, they still would have been. They still would have made it all 3 years. But they just had the Cardinals were having their magic touches those years. Cubs were coming up.
Even the Giants in 2014.
Oh God, yeah, even the Giants.
You want to talk about black magic right there?
I know. Madison Bumgarner just absolutely blew them away, made them look foolish up there. It's they just ran into some tough luck, but I think kind of what they're looking for in the future, they have a really good chance a few years from now where they can easily be a solid competing team for the division and potentially wild card. And maybe if there's expanded playoffs by that time, it might be a little easier for them to make it. So we'll see. We'll see how things go for them.
Yeah, I'll never forget that game against Cincinnati where everyone was chanting Cueto and then he dropped the ball on the mound.
And then gave up the homer the very next pitch.
And Russell Martin, I believe.
Yeah, I think it was Martin.
Looking back, it kind of makes sense why they kind of left that team to try to rebuild in the first place. A lot of their core was aging veterans. At that point, McCutchen was just getting ready to enter his 30s. Marte was getting ready to enter his 30s. Guys like Russell Martin, Francisco Liriano, AJ Burnett, Jay Happ, those guys were all in their 30s. So it was definitely a short window for them to try to compete. Unfortunately, it just didn't work out for them.
Yeah, but those are 3 fun years for them.
Very fun.
Very, very much worth it for the fans, even though it just didn't quite work out.
Yeah, if you're lucky enough, if you go on YouTube and you search one of AJ Burnett's last starts, it was at PNC. I forget. I believe they were either. I think they were playing the Padres that day. My uncle is, I'll say wealthy, just to say the least. He got tickets for. It was right down the third base line, right behind the Pirates dugout, probably 5 rows back. So like these are really nice seats, and one of the people that he was taking with decided to back out, so he asked me to go with, and I obliged. So I think I was sitting in the aisle seat, and as AJ Burnett pitched a masterpiece. It was like 7 1/3 innings, like no runs, like 8 strikeouts, like a classic Pirates AJ Burnett moment.
Wow.
It ended up being his last game there. And as he's walking off the mound, you actually see my back. The cameraman was right behind me, so all you see is me with my back tipping my cat to AJ Burnett. So if you're lucky enough, you can go on YouTube and try to find that.
I'll share one more story before we get off. My grandparents got to go to PNC back in 2015, and they're Diamondbacks fans. They live in Arizona, and luckily enough, the Diamondbacks were in town when they were in the area. So they had a family relative at the time who hooked them up with some tickets, and they actually were right by the Pirates dugout. And I remember watching the game on TV. I watched a recording of it. I didn't get to watch it live, but I watched it on like MLB.TV, and I could clearly see them both. Anytime the camera was angled at the facing the pitcher's left and towards the third base side, there my grandparents were, and they were like one of the only D-backs fans there. They got to meet Andrew Chafin's family that day too.
Oh, wow.
Chafin is from Ohio. Yeah, he's from Ohio, and so his family made the trip out to Pittsburgh. They got to meet him. It was just a great time. I looked at the video of that. I was like, oh, hey, that's my grandparents.
Yeah, I can't wait till we get fans back at the ballpark.
Yeah, same here.
I was able to snag tickets to an Orioles Astros game in 2019, front row, left field. It was like $38. So there was a line drive hit in the 8th inning, and you can see me and my friend. I actually bought Orioles gear to wear just because he was an Astros fan. My friend Corey, he was an Astros fan, so I actually bought an Orioles hat and an Orioles shirt to wear just to kind of goof him. But yeah, there was a line drive hit, and it was right in front of us, and you just see me looking down. So it's always cool to see yourself on TV like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But with that said, this concludes another episode of Dugout Talk. Thankfully, we were able to fix some of the issues we had today and give you guys at least a semi-decent show. Hopefully, I wasn't too buggy at all this last time around, but we will be doing more PowerPoint moving forward, maybe even something else down the line. Time will tell. But, like I said last week, we're always striving to make this a better show for you guys, a better experience, give you guys more reasons to watch and listen. I appreciate the followers on Instagram. We're up to almost, I think we're over 20 now at this point. After like 6 days. If you check it out, a couple days ago, I posted some pictures of Three Rivers Stadium that you can go check out. Some really nice shots from when the Pirates and Steelers played there. Excuse me. I posted some old. I think I'm going to post mostly just kind of older pictures. I'm big into history, especially baseball history. So that's kind of be my platform to geek out over some good baseball classics.
I forgot to make a slide for our social media followings today, but I'll make sure to do that tomorrow. Be sure to follow us on our YouTube channel, which is Dugout Talk. Facebook page is Dugout Talk. The username is @RealDugoutTalk. Instagram handle is @RealDugoutTalk. And then Twitter handle is @DugoutTalk1. And like Cam said, I echo the same. We're very grateful for all of you guys. Really excited to see the Instagram page getting a good following. It's been fun. We're really excited about this. Next week will be our 1 month anniversary, which is it's crazy to think it's already been this long, but we're grateful for everyone who's stuck it out with us and really been supportive and just listening to our episodes, contributing on social media as well. We're going to be covering the Milwaukee Brewers tomorrow. That should be a fun episode. But yeah, that's going to do it for us today. Thank you guys again just for being with us, and we'll see you around tomorrow.
See you guys.